Is it just me, or do the last few months of the year always feel like a sprint at the end of a marathon? With the seasons changing, their new schedules, new sports, and several holidays to get ready for. In the midst of it all, some days it can seem like no matter how organized or productive you've been, the items on your list never quite get fully checked off. On top of that, there's also a common feeling that you never have time to do the things you really want to do, like read that new book or finally go on that trip with friends.
People are meeting their deadlines. They're getting their family members where they need to go at about the time that they're supposed to be there. They are already getting the stuff on their to-do lists done. But what happens is sometimes when we become so focused on all of these responsibilities, all the things we need to do, life starts to feel like a slog.
That's Laura Vanderkam, a time management expert and author of the new title, Tranquility by Tuesday. She says that the end goal of time management isn't to get even more done, but to help carve out time for the activities that bring us joy.
It often comes down to how we spend our hours, that it's not just about, do you have a good job? It's like, well, what are you doing with the hours that you are working? Are you making space for the projects that you do enjoy? Are you getting to invest in the relationships with colleagues who you find incredibly energizing and inspiring? Are you feeling like you're making progress on your goals, or do you feel like you're constantly just putting out fires? And it makes a big difference. It can be the exact same job, but the question of how you're spending your hours each day definitely affects mood and affects, how you feel like life is going.
And these time management techniques aren't rocket science. It's small changes like getting good sleep and enough exercise that, along with other habits, all add up to make a notable difference. It might sound cliche, but having a set bedtime shouldn't just be for kids.
I've found over the years that a lot of people sleep in a very disorderly fashion. If you have them keep track of their time for a week, they may be sleeping enough from a quantitative perspective, but they're feeling exhausted some days, and then other days their bodies are forcing them to catch up on sleep. And so it can be hard to maintain good routines on those days. It's so much better. You'll have so much more energy if you get the amount of sleep that you need every single night.
According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, most adults need about 7 or more hours of uninterrupted sleep per night. But there are exceptions. Some people may be able to function on less, while others may need more.
So in my household, we get kids up and ready for the bus starting at about 6:30 in the morning. So if I need 7.5 hours, if I'm up at 6:30 in the morning, that suggests that I need to be asleep at 11 p.m., more or less. And to make that happen, you need to set some time before the bedtime that you can start winding down so that you can have the lights off at that time and not, still be remembering a million things that you need to do right when it's time for going to bed. But when people did this, when people started giving themselves a bedtime and getting about the amount of sleep they need every single night, they had so much more energy. So they could wake up in the morning and feel like they were ready to handle their days, that they were actually more excited about their days. Whereas if we are sleep deprived when we get up, well, it's really hard to be in a good mood. Or if your body's forcing you to catch up on sleep, so you're hitting snooze 3 times or sleeping through an alarm, well, that's going to be a pretty bad day too, because you've already started in a bit of chaos, and it can be hard to recover from that.
Once you're past the morning hump, it's important to build in some time for movement. Vanderkam says one rule she recommends to clients is doing some kind of exercise before 3 p.m.
This is about maintaining energy levels. There's pretty good evidence that even short bursts of physical activity can massively boost people's mood. They can make people feel more energized. And the reason to do it before 3 p.m. is that when people have looked at energy levels in the course of a day, that tends to be a low point. So if you haven't moved by 3 p.m., getting up to do it then is a good time, because then you'll get through the rest of the afternoon without necessarily reaching for coffee or candy bars or whatever else it is that people rely on to boost their energy. But when people did this, when people started to figure out how they could, just even go for a 10-minute walk at some point each day before 3 p.m., for starters, they had a lot more energy.
The act of finding time for exercise also forces a person to be strategic about their schedule. Vanderkam says that too often people waste several hours on mundane tasks.
One of my rules, rule number 8, is to batch the little things. to designate a small window for tackling all these tasks that are not terribly urgent and are not terribly important. And so if at work, for instance, you say, okay, well, from 1 to 1:30, I am going to get through as many of these tasks as possible. First, just two things happen when you do this. One is that you become more efficient. Like if you need to buy a birthday present and fill out these forms, you're not going to look through the entire universe of birthday presents because you've only got 30 minutes to get through everything, right? So you're just going to force some efficiencies and thus spend a little less time on these tasks that probably don't deserve as much of your time as you might otherwise give them. But beyond that, it allows you to relax at other points or to focus on deeper things. You know, you're working on a really important business matter in the morning. You're like, oh, but wait, I have to fill out that form from HR and order a birthday present. You say, no, no, no. There is a time for that. I'm going to do that between 1 and 1:30. Now is not that time. I can stick with this difficult issue that I am working on. I can, relax if it's on a weekend, for instance. Maybe you designate a chore window for little things on the weekend.
Setting small windows of time to knock out these less important items can help you steer clear of procrastination.
The unfortunate reality is sometimes we want to do these small tasks. We want to give ourselves the easy win. It's like, well, I'm dealing with this very difficult, memo I need to write. Maybe it's something that I know the person is not going to want to hear. I really need to put the effort into it. Or I could just go order that birthday present and fill out that form from HR. And so we distract ourselves, right? We want to kind of get some of these easy wins, but, sometimes it's better to tell ourselves, no, we're going to wait on the easy wins. We're going to take the time that this bigger matter deserves. There will be a time for the easy wins. We'll do that later. But right now, we need to leave our schedule clear for the more important matters.
And it feels good once you've checked off that big, overwhelming task. Oftentimes, it wasn't as bad as you thought it would be. With every week comes a new set of challenges, but setting good habits and being strict with where your time is going can make all the difference. Vanderkam says the last part of the equation is preparing your to-do list ahead of time. For instance, she sits down every Friday to build out her schedule for the following week.
Friday is when many people are sort of sliding into the weekend, taking it easy if they work a Monday through Friday job. It is really hard to start anything new on Fridays, and particularly on Friday afternoon. But we might be willing to think about what future us should be doing. So if we were just going to waste this time, waiting until it was acceptable to leave the office or waiting until it was acceptable to sign off for people who are working from home, well, why not repurpose this time and actually use it for something productive? Think about what future you should be doing. And by taking a few minutes to plan the upcoming week, you can turn what might be wasted time into some of your most productive time. Just as one more thing, planning on Friday allows you to use all of Monday. I know a lot of people do plan their weeks on Monday mornings, but the problem is if you're planning on Monday mornings, most of the things you're setting up to do can't really get started until either Monday afternoon or even Tuesday. And again, if we're sliding toward the weekend on Friday, we've just got a much shorter work week. Whereas if we plan on Friday, we can use all of Monday. And so that just allows us to feel like our hours are a bit more expansive.
And by having a better grip on your time, it opens up space to pursue the things that you actually look forward to doing. This might mean anything from going to a movie theater alone to finally signing up for that oil painting class you've been eyeing.
I think life should be enjoyed. And I think that there are pretty simple habits we can build into our lives that can make any given day feel better. My goal is always to have people enjoy their Tuesdays more. Like I want people to enjoy their normal days. We don't need to wait for weekends. We don't need to wait for vacations. We can actually just make any given day feel better. And when we do, when we upgrade our normal days, then we upgrade our entire lives.
To find out more about this topic and time management, as well as our guest, Laura Vanderkam, visit viewpointsradio.org. Also, check out her new book, Tranquility by Tuesday, now available online and in select bookstores. For more behind the scenes, search Viewpoints Radio on Twitter and Facebook. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri, studio production by Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson. Coming up next week.
They very much wanted to fight for their country and to defeat the Nazis and help win the war. But at the same time, they had to fight just for the right to serve in the military.
Covering the stories of some 1 million African Americans that served in World War II. Then,
You're seeing companies that offer more freedom and more flexibility and more remote work for their employees. They are seeing better retention.
Taking a look at the post-pandemic work landscape. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.